Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. And hope you are having a fantastic day. Welcome to In Review with myself, SYLBOURNE as we look at some of the top news of the week from your perspective and the guest perspective, which is David, KEIMA, and KEISHA, or KEISHA, David, and KEIMA, or KEIMA, KEISHA, and David. Because if I say David first, you're going to say, why you put David first? So I put KEISHA, David, KEIMA. And if I put KEISHA first, KEIMA is going to say, why I put KEISHA first? KEIMA, David, KEISHA. If you get what I'm saying. That's our personal joke, ladies and gentlemen. So listen, it's an exciting week. Jamaica elections coming on later. We're going to run through this one. And 12 o'clock, you can join us later. Again, I'm just kidding. COVID is still on the scene. And that geezer, I call COVID this terrorist. COVID, you know. I'm going to start coughing. The last time I had a show once, and I tell you this is a joke, ladies and gentlemen, it's a serious joke. I had Dr. David on, and we were talking about COVID. And man, I wanted to cough so bad, but nobody wanted to cough. Everybody gets scared of coughing. So I had the water, and the water went down my throat, pathway. But I just didn't want to cough. So I just put myself out of the picture frame and did a massive laugh, cough. So anyway, that was a personal joke at the same time. But nobody knew what happened. Why did I disappear? Because people was afraid of coughing. Up to this day, I don't know if that's the case. But anyway, without further ado, let me just introduce my guest again, which is, first of all, I will have KEISHA Allen, who is pulling up her chair to make sure that she's okay and fixed. KEISHA, how are you doing?
Hi, SYLBOURNE. I'm so happy to be back again.
You have no sound. Now, where do you... Okay, good. Now you got some sound. And then I bring in your other half, which is, they're twins, and I have KEIMA Allen. How are you, KEIMA?
Hello, Syl. I can't see my photo. Oh, there I am.
You can't see a photo? Okay, there you are.
But I'm the firstborn, Syl.
And you had a good week. Really?
That is significant.
Well, let me bring in the doctor. I don't want to get involved with this. I said, David, I'll have to ask David how that works.
David, good evening. How are you guys?
Good.
Can you hear
David,
me?
I just saw something, an issue just came up a while ago. I said KEIMA and KEISHA twins, and now one of them are saying they're firstborns. How does that work?
I am the firstborn.
Well, as you're probably aware, SYLBOURNE, one baby can be delivered after the other.
But she couldn't be 100% sure, is it?
What do you mean? No. KEIMA, this
oh God,
we started
something.
This debate, and for many years we've had this debate. I came out first, which means I am the firstborn. There's no argument there. That's a fact.
I don't think you could remember.
Yeah. David, let me bring back David. David, is there any way that KEISHA could remember that she was the first one that came out?
In matters like this, SYLBOURNE, I care not to get involved. I can't. I'm Team KEISHA and Team KEIMA, or Team KEIMA and Team KEISHA. Whichever one you want to go with first.
All right. Well. In this case, we're going to leave it to the Lord Almighty, who sees what happened there. And you're right, David. There are sometimes as men we just come out of certain things. Yeah. You know. Good. Anyway, guys, listen. Exciting week. We got the Jamaica election, which is the top news. In about a few hours, we'll hear if the Prime Minister Andrew Holness retained the position, or Dr. Peter Phillips become the next Prime Minister, or the government wins. I always say the government always wins in this case. You vote out the government, you get the government back in. So that's my prediction for tonight. You know, what's your guys' prediction? I know you guys are honorary Jamaican, KEIMA and KEISHA. Who do you predict is going to be the next Prime Minister of Jamaica?
Well, I think Mr. Holness is going to remain as Prime Minister.
Yes.
I think it's the Labour Party will continue. Normally, and Akima might correct me if I'm wrong, it tends to be that there's tend to be a second term, isn't it, given to the current existing.
Well, in Jamaica, you don't have two terms; it can go on forever.
Oh, okay. But I mean, normally, would it be then the first two term would tend to be the same party, historically?
Well, historically, yes, but that is more for the USA, really, you know,
and the UK Trump as well.
Yeah, you know.
Okay.
KEISHA, KEIMA, sorry.
Yeah, I think Mr. Holden is going to remain as Holness is going to remain as your prime minister. I think he's campaigned very well so far, and I think the campaign's been very positive. From what I heard, so I think good luck to whoever win. But I think Holness will retain his seat.
Yeah, I saw
And
a statement from him earlier today. Sorry to interject. I saw a statement from him earlier today on my Facebook feed about encouraging people to come out and vote, and obviously observing the social distancing rules, wearing your mask and all that. So he seems to be promoting the idea of, remain safe, but go out and vote. So that's very good.
Well, and David, from your perspective,
I think the writing's on the wall. I think our Prime Minister, KEIMA, our Prime Minister, will remain as he is in position. And I can't see the incumbent changing. The writing's on the wall. The cards have been dealt. The timing's right for the current government to stay in power. And I just can't see that changing dissimilarly. So it's going to be Team Green all the way, I guess.
Okay, so I guess we'll know in a few hours.
Well, and I like
because,
green as well. So
the results will. The polling station closes at 5 p.m. You like green? Okay. The polling station closes at 5 p.m. And then the vote. Who's talking? I keep hearing sounds. Hello, KEISHA,
I was
did you say
just
something?
clarifying that green is my favorite color. So yes, I'd have a tendency to support anybody that wins.
Okay. All right, okay. I see you pushing your political line right here. Stepping into the political zone. You keep emphasizing it. Can't get a word in. I guess you must be saying bro God, if you don't know what
I
that means.
don't. Break it down for us.
Let's move on from there. Let's deal with the terrorists first. Let's deal with this terrorist. COVID, that geezer there. David, what's the latest with COVID? You weren't here last week, so I mean, there's some developments whereby they're talking about how they have been counting the deaths. There are questions now, and I believe Matt Hancock is actually saying that they need to revise how they're counting the deaths. Is that correct?
Well, the ONS stats came out, I think it's today or yesterday, 57,000 persons associated deaths. So I think that's the thing that's really changed somewhat in terms of the terminology that's being used. If we cast our mind back to the daily briefings that we had, it was certain numbers of people who have been affected and certain numbers of people who have died as a consequence of COVID. Again, that's changed now to being associated. So there is a question mark, obviously, about persons who have passed away and whether it is loosely associated or directly caused by COVID. I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of that particular picture from historic persons who have passed away, but we will prospectively, I think, once there's a decision about how deaths are recorded. And I don't think it's just a UK problem, by the way. This has been a problem from the off in terms of how people have recorded the persons passing away, and obviously the numbers do matter in terms of the perception of this virus. There are parts of the world that we know of that have recorded no deaths from COVID over the past few weeks and months, and cases have been very limited in those countries, and part of that may well be because of testing. And that brings me on to the next point, which is that the numbers of people who are testing positive with coronavirus are at an all-time high since June. But really, we've got to look at the numbers again. And if you look at the numbers, you'll find that the number of people who have been tested since June is on the increase also. So in June, we were testing around 100,000 persons per day, and now we're testing up to 170,000 persons per day. There have been limitations in that, however, and the government have sort of issued apologies that they're not able to keep up to pace with regards to the testing at the moment, regards to COVID. So yes, there's an increase in numbers. However, there's also an increase in number of tests that are being sort of dished out on a daily basis. One of the other things that we've come to realize with COVID is in the effect in children. And some of the information that's coming out recently is that we may have a change to the diagnosis, or at least not the diagnosis, but the reported symptoms for COVID. So diarrheal illness and changing bowel habit, abdominal pain, those things have been found to be highly prevalent in kids. And so what the health organization associated with the government have basically said is that it's under a watchful review. So at the moment, just to remind ourselves, the key things that we look out for with regards to COVID are a continuous cough, high temperature, and a change to your sense of smell. Those are the things that would really alert you to sort of get tested. At the moment, the abdominal pain and diarrheal illness has not been added to that list, but it could potentially be added. I would have hesitation, however, with that, because there's a number of things that could cause diarrheal illness, as well as things like food poisoning, etc. So I think there's going to be a little bit more hesitancy in terms of how that will be added on, but nonetheless, there's a review of the symptoms associated with COVID, reportable symptoms, so that you can go and get tested.
As you mentioned about the bowel system, do you think that is where the toilet paper issue came in then, in some way? They're still trying to crack that.
They're trying to crack that code. I think people go into panic mode, don't they? It seems that bread and toilet rolls were the first things to fling off the shelves, but the bread is going to be adding the fiber and I guess making you go a little bit more. So that could be the reason. But no, I think that in regards to the toilet paper issue, I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it.
Yes. It's
come on, you missed the joke, guys. Oh my gosh.
What's that?
Oh, the pun, you mean?
You won't get to the bottom of it. Oh.
The pun.
That's exactly. We're a bit slow, but we got it in the end.
Yeah, you got it in the end.
Mr.
I'm just too
Burton.
serious. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, let's rewind again. Since we're Jamaicans in a way, and there's a song by Joseph where "We Don't Come Again." We don't come again. Start again.
I said, with regards to the toilet paper, we might not get to the bottom of it.
Oh!
There you go.
So Mr. Sidell is slower than the rest of us, but there you go.
That was genuine. That wasn't like I'm trying to appease you, David. That was genuine. And my niece in Jamaica would say, "Uncle, that is so cheesy." You know what I mean?
I like cheese. What can I say?
What David should have said, he was mind the pun and then say what he had to say.
That next time. On the setup there.
But on a serious note, though, there's something which I saw about diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal cramp in children could be a sign of coronavirus infection. UK researchers said they're talking about children. Upset stomach in children symptoms. Is that some new development there?
And that's what I'm saying. It's something that we will continue to review in the need of time. But I think it's very difficult for us to sort of definitely pin that one down. It's something that could be loosely associated with it. But what we're finding is more and more information in that regard. I would have the caveat though that there are lots of other causes for diarrheal illness, abdominal pain, cramping, that sort of thing. So I think essentially, taking stool samples is going to be it's probably one way of establishing whether or not the coronavirus is in that sample. And yeah, definitely my jokes are dad jokes.
Sorry, I mean, we're talking serious stuff, but Chris will understand.
I'm sure Chris was laughing as well. He got it. If he's got a child, he's laughing.
Hang on, there's more, David.
He's right. I've got a copy right here.
I'm sorry. This is supposed to be very serious, but I'm sorry. The guests are also very important. The commentators on the side there. Well, I think at the end of the program we're going to play something with David and his son.
We have to have the setup though. I have to have the prelude.
We got the setup, yeah. It's very interesting. But KEIMA and KEISHA, in light of COVID now and with the job prospect, we're going to touch on school shortly. What's your take on how COVID is now? I mean, with working and your role developments.
Well, to be interesting, Boris is trying to encourage individuals to go back to work, go back to the offices. The latest is that only 30% of the UK workforce has decided to go back to the offices. And of course, for the economy's sake, We need to get people back to normal. And I suppose that's why this week we've been asked for children to go back to school. But of course, it's not has been as straightforward as that. I mean, I know some businesses are taking their own responsibility to make sure that their workplaces are safe. Today, in my particular workplace, we do COVID tests and COVID retesting. But that is taking our own precautions as well, just to make sure that everybody who's coming back feel safe and feel that they would be working in a very environment. But it's not so straightforward. There's some people who are still reluctant to go back to work. And this week I heard one commentator saying that individuals are a bit lazy. And
was that Nick Ferrari?
Yes, I heard it on the radio, and I'm reluctant to use that term, but of course, when the individual has been sat at home for 6 months, they need to be assured that they could go back to work and in a very safe environment. So that's where we are in terms from a work perspective. But of course, the economy desperately need people to go back to work. You need people to go back to the shops, the corner shops. But the government might need to be looking at different ways to entice and encourage individuals to go back to work. In the inner city, or should I say in City of London particularly, is the struggle, because of course we know congestion charge now is 24/7, isn't it? 7 days a week. And so that's not very encouraging for some individuals to go back to work and go back to the offices.
And Keisha, what's your take on all developments now with COVID and the job prospects?
I take issue with the government, and may I even add KEIMA, who keeps saying back to work. Some of us at home is actually working. We are working. We are getting on with the job. We're delivering our objectives on time. And I just don't understand why there's a group of people out there, including members of this current government, who seem to think that we are not working, we are lazy. Listen, this is a new way of getting things done. Okay, there's a new way by which we are progressing within this society, and people need to begin to step back and reflect and say, okay, let us make adjustments and accommodate this new way of working. Now, it is not the people who decide to work from home fault if what's happening in the city at the moment, which is of course a lot of these small corner shops who, with all due respect, when I was working in the city, during lunchtime, I had to go out and buy a sandwich, or I could understand from the government point of view, for the economy, they need some people like me to be back into the office. But frankly, I'm at home and I have a better balanced life. This morning I had the great opportunity to have breakfast with my son rather than taking him to a breakfast club. I had the opportunity to pick him up after school. Don't have to take him to after school club, because actually going into city means that I don't get home until very late in the day, which means I don't get to see my son for a very long time in the day. This is perfect for people like myself to work at home within our own, obviously within the 7.5 hours that's actually allocated to us, and actually being able to actually have a work balanced life. And that is what we need to be encouraging, not this idea that, let us go back to work to actually rebuild the economy. I am rebuilding the economy by actually working at home. I am.
Okay.
Well, I, to be honest, Keisha, I'll have to take issue with that.
Yeah.
Take issue.
Yeah.
I do, because you need to understand that the country we're in now, 2 trillion in debt, and the chancellor, obviously, he's been faffing about trying to come up with a plan to get that money back somehow, or whether he's going to be increasing pensions, take it back from pensions, or take it back from the middle class earners. Somehow, we're going to have to find some ways to pay for that 2 trillion in debt that we've sort of racked up. 30 billion of it alone is 30 billion of it alone is through the furlough scheme. So that is a big headache in itself for the government. And if people don't go back to work, there's not just the service sector in particular that's been impacted, but you've got, for example, the small businesses, you've got the theatres, you've got the musicians, you've got all of that in inner city London, in London, who's going to really suffer deeply as a result of it. So it is really important for the economy's sake that people get back to work.
Okay, there's a distinction, David, isn't it, and Kima, about going back to work because people are working from home. Kima said
Thank
she's
you.
working from home. Keisha's
I am
working from
working from
home.
home. I'm working
I
very
think what
hard,
they
and
have to
sometimes I
respect.
feel I'm working longer than I should. But yes.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. We don't want to labor that point there. And make Rishi's listening, and so he's fully cognizant of that fact. Yeah. The point I'm trying to say right here, and is what Herbert said. I think people are now concerned about their well-being more than anything else. Now, listening to the
Exactly.
government, it seems like they want to get to work to go in the city because the transportation is going to have a loss at this moment now. The the Pret Manager, the shops and all those places are going to have a loss because there is no we call it footfall
Footfall, yeah.
Footfall, yeah.
what do you call it? Footfall at the same time. So they're looking at different ways how they can stimulate the economy. Um, David, what's your take on that? Because I'm happy in my fraternity and my legal field here. Everybody's working from home. The judges are working from home. Only hybrid cases go to court, and we've seen like it worked perfectly. But at the same time, one can recognize that the restaurants, which I can recall across the road, just before we went on lockdown, there's a restaurant which was reopening, and they benefit a lot from the court. But if nobody is going to court now to have quick dash of course to get lunch, busted.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a really tricky debate. You can see both sides of the argument here, with regards to
Yeah.
keeping the economy going, but at the same time having sort of a health and well-being aspect to everything, and thinking about your family, which historically we've not been able to do because of the work commitments. I've always wondered how challenging and difficult it is to have two parents working, if you have a two-parent family, if you have a single-parent family, and having to go through that passage of having your kids at school, not being able to spend the time that you feel is quality with them. And that's a really difficult balance that we've had. It's a work-life balance that I think most of us really struggle with, and this has presented the opportunity for that to flourish. What I will say is that going down the line, what we've got to also think about, very seriously, of course, is what companies do in response to this. And if there isn't that physical presence of people being in the workplace, you wonder about where jobs will be in the future. So what I will say to that is that we've seen that some sectors of workplace service jobs particularly have been moved to other parts of the world because it's been deemed that they can be used or utilized in other parts of the world. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I think it's just something that should be lodged in the memory banks and thought about in regards to working from home. Because a physical presence, of course, being in a workplace and seeing managers and all the rest of it, does have just promote that kind of I'm here to do the work. I'm physically in the building, but that's not to detract from the fact that essentially this moment in time gives rise to that sort of, again, that health and well-being aspect and putting your mind in a better headspace. But it is tricky. Obviously, the economy needs to thrive, and I guess there's got to be other ways that the economy does thrive. And I guess the sort of restaurateurs, businesses, the transportation sector as well is going to have to really rethink how they are able to navigate, given the fact that the workplaces are in reduction. One of the things that a restaurateur could easily do is provide food deliveries at home. I know that a lot of friends and family that I've talked to have been making a lot more use of, say, Deliveroo, etc. So that might well be a route. I know that there's so much competition that's out there, but that might well be a daily regular sandwich delivery at home, or hot food delivery at home. People may well take part of that, because what you'd hope is that there's going to be more disposable income, because of the lack of traveling, and the lack of people having to buy food whilst out. So they may well look to, and obviously we can't go on holiday anymore either. So the fact is we should have a little bit more disposable income, and that might well be around it. I'm just thinking off the cuff, but the fact is there's going to have to be a change in mentality in regards to the things and the jobs and positions that people were in beforehand. Because even if people do go back to work, it's not going to be going back to work in droves. There are still going to be people working from home.
Yeah. And I mean, Christopher, I can wrap up this section with what Christopher said. It's all about the economy. Let's be real, which what I touched earlier. Staying at home is only good for you, not supporting other business such as the CAF. And all these stimulate the economy, because and I think that's a balancing act. That's why I call COVID a terrorist, because being a terrorist, then we all get scared of the whole thing, and we don't want to do anything. But during the Northern Ireland and the IRA, we were encouraged to still go about our business, but stay alert. If you see the bag, stay alert, control the virus, and save lives. And I believe that is what will have to happen eventually still, because I must say sometimes being at home sometimes can be a daunting perspective. When we meet with our colleagues on teams, you can sense there's it's like people missing each other in a way, like, wanting to be with your mates and maybe to get away from home. I don't know, guys. That's my thing.
But as I mentioned last week, Sil, going out and going into work can be very positive for individuals' own mental health. And not necessarily, as Keisha mentioned about well-being, staying at home. But remember, you're not having that interaction that most people are used to.
And some people I'm having the interaction on Teams. I'm having the interaction on Zoom. I'm having the interaction on Skype. Keima, I am using modern technology to engage with my employees and employers. It is working.
That's perfectly fine for you, but there's some individuals who need to be able to go back into the workforce, go back into the offices, meet and speak and speak to other individuals. Sitting at home on your computer, your desk all day does not necessarily mean you're productive. As a matter of fact, you could be doing quite the opposite, because you're not taking enough breaks. You're not, getting up and walking about, and all of that helps with your well-being. So, of course, that interaction in the workplace is very essential.
I don't think you should be in a position, Keima, to be doubting my ability to do my job. That's not really what this is about.
Yeah, don't elder sister. Don't doubt your elder sister. Okay. Please, thank you. Okay, elder sister. Even for a second. Listen, it's school days. We're all parents now. We're all parents in this frame now. How does it feel going back to school with your children going back to school now?
Well, SYLBOURNE, I have a story. So shall I go first? I've got a story today. I took my son Caleb to school, and we had the prep talk before we went to school. So I said, I put his hand sanitizer in his bag. I put his mask on. I told him, obviously you count to about 20 when you're washing your hand. I had the whole chat with him. Then obviously we went to school. When I went to school, obviously none of the parents had on masks. None of the children had on masks. And they wanted to say hello and everything. And I'm like, Caleb, you stay in your bubble, okay? Remember to stay in your bubble. And then he looked at me and he was like, Mommy, this is ridiculous. And he literally took his mask off and gave it to me.
Well, that's nothing yet. There's a boy who went to school with a mask and came home back with his friend's mask. He said, where's your mask? The exchange mask.
I don't know how they're going to manage this social distancing between these kids with all them different bubbles going on, and his mate is in a different circle. It's interesting. Clearly none of them wearing masks, so that's fine. It's just quite interesting though, because as David spoke about earlier today, there's another symptom arising, which of course diarrhea and all that, or vomiting, and you just think to yourself, well, there's no, from a parent point of view, what protection other than the prep can you do? You're just gonna have to rely now on teachers or the governors at the school to implement the safety measures. So there's nothing else you can do besides just trusting that they're doing it the right way.
Keisha, Keima, you say something first before I ask David for the science on this. What's your take on back to school?
Well, for me this week is the school uniforms. Nothing fits. I mean, trying to find the right school uniform was a big deal for me. But on a more of a serious note, though, this week, Matt Hancock and other members of the cabinet, we were talking about a number of school children, particularly those who didn't go to private school, have fallen behind for a couple of months. And I know particularly Labour is trying to press for the government to try and come up with a scheme to help children, particularly those from the poorer backgrounds, to be able to catch up. And that's a really, really big issue, and I think a very good incentive for the government to try and do. And I believe the government is actually giving head teachers some extra funds to do that. So I think that would be really, really great to help support those children, because it'd be very, very difficult. I can imagine if you're a school teacher now coming back and having to assess and start lessons from scratch, knowing that they're going to be at different levels. Some going to be carrying on working throughout the pandemic, and some just not going to do anything.
And you're right. And you mentioned about the school uniform, because we have been doing some school uniform stuff. And if you try something on and it doesn't fit, they have to put it in quarantine for 20 days or so. The business place, Sainsbury, whatever like that. So that's a challenge again. But David, what's the science behind this whole thing? I mean, the word is get back to school, isn't it?
The word is go back to school. I think we talk about the economy. Obviously, that does matter, but broadly, education matters as well. And I think KEIMA picked up on a really good point there, that we're worried about people not developing, especially in the early years, and especially if you're from a lower socioeconomic background. I guess the data's not there, I don't think, to support that, but you do worry about kids being left behind. And education does matters greatly. Just go back to Tony Blair and his, being on the podium and saying education, education, education. That sticks in your mind. And I don't want education to be the right of a privileged few and not the many. And now I sound like a politician, but honestly, it's got to be for everybody. And the thing is, when we think about COVID, I know that we can't sort of look at COVID and say, well, actually, it's not a problem. And it obviously is an issue, but thankfully, it seems not to affect kids as discernibly as adults. And I get Keisha's point in regards to, well, what happens with the other families out there? If your children pick up COVID and they're passing it on to family members, etc., etc. And that is a true feeling, and it's a true thought. And I guess we've got to realize, have that as a realization. It could well manifest itself and affect adults, but we don't know how this thing will spread between kids in its true nature. So I think kids have got to get back to school. There's got to be some form of formal education for them. We can't have this exam fiasco occur in the same magnitude as it occurred previously, and education matters enormously. And again, I keep re-emphasizing, I know the economy matters, but if you don't have kids coming through schooling and education, and you have, you say, private education being being the element, if that makes sense, it being the first and foremost, and you're leaving other kids who are in state schools behind, then I don't think that's fair representation for any society to have. And so that's why I'm happy that kids are going back to school. And we've just got to really deal with the there and after.
But one of the practical way forward is what Christopher said. Teachers will walk around in school with a meter stick to keep them apart. At least the children will learn about meters and foot and all those sort of things. There must be something about it, But on a serious note, my philosophy is that when children go back to school, there's a possibility of this whole thing which they call spike. But David, really and truly, isn't about just getting on with it. And
well, I'm not going to sit here and say I know
David,
what's.
Before you go there, David, but isn't there something that's saying the reason why we're not having so many deaths now is because medical fraternity have learned a lot how to deal with COVID.
We definitely have learned a lot, and it's good that you touched on that there, SYLBOURNE, because I'll speak about the facts, and the facts are that we can deal with this a lot better now than we could, say, 6 months ago when this disease first hit. And one of the studies that came out from the American Journal of Medicine, JAMA, really illustrated that today, and that we have dexamethasone and hydrocortisone, which have been found to reduce the impact of COVID on those acutely unwell, who are very unwell with the disease, by around 20%. So we know that we've got effective treatments that actually weren't geared up for COVID. We didn't design them for COVID. We've been using hydrocortisone and dexamethasone for many years for the ailments. So we're learning more, and we will continue to learn more on how to sort of treat people who are unwell with this particular disease. Not that we want people to be unwell, but for the reasons we talked about earlier, people going back to workplaces, whether in home or out of the home, people getting back to the form of work. In the same breath, we need to get people back into the education system and get them motivated enough and comfortable enough to be in learning environments where they're protected. And it's as simple as that.
But you could understand some of the anxiety, particularly coming from some teachers now, because you have more people back in the workplace, more people going out, and you have children, students as well. And of course, you don't want where, for example, a student get infected and then teacher get it and parents get it. And so it's quite important that all the risk that could possibly happen in the schools are mitigated or taken care of to some degree. But I know the government in particular are talking about bringing out a vaccine or bringing out you could test and get your results in the next 20 minutes or something like that. I think these are kind of
it's a test scheme, not the vaccine, but the testing. The testing, if we can get that testing time down, it means that we can then allow kids to safely be isolated and so on and so forth. At this current moment in time, I think that it's a reality that we should be able to achieve very quickly, more so than, say, a vaccine presently.
Yeah, but whatever the government can do to sort of assure people, I think will very much help.
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement. We need to make sure. That's why the last sentence was in a safe environment. Whether that safety is in making sure teachers feel protected and students feel protected and infants feel protected in what they do. We need to make sure that's truly realized. And it boils down to all walks of life. We don't want to just feel protected in schools. We want to feel protected in our work environments. We want to feel protected when we're going out the shop, etc., etc. And I think with the more information and the time that passes, we can gain that information and make allowances to feel more protected and lower those anxiety levels that are obviously prevalent within our society, but I would hope are reducing enormously compared to back in February, March.
Okay, guys, as we're onto this, I want to just jump onto another thing and regarding the TV license. Remember last week we were talking about TV license, and the Director General is talking about, the former Director General is saying the TV license fee might be replaced by a new household tax scheme that would include council tax payments. I know I've been talking about this, and many people have been talking about this. Do you think this is another scam?
Well, it's a suggestion. I'm not particularly keen on the proposal, the suggestions, whatever put forward, because everybody know the council tax in itself is not very popular. So whatever government decide to implement it can't see themselves being re-elected the way I see it. So it's not going to be. It's not a very popular suggestion. I feel anyway. I think they need to come up with a different route to fund the BBC. I mean, I understand individuals suggesting possibly a subscription basis, which I think is quite good. I mean, of course, there's a lot of people in this country who really love the BBC, and I think, of course, just like Netflix and all the others, the BBC you could subscribe to it, but of course, it's not in this. It's not popular with the elite because, of course, it means it's only going to be some individuals that would be paying towards the license fee, and so that's not going to be popular. And so the BBC, as it is, it's supposed to provide content for everybody, comedy, news, and it's supposed to be very, very good content, and that's the whole idea why we in the public continue to fund it. But as you know, quite recently, there's a lot of individuals who aren't happy with some of the things that are put out by the BBC. I think one in particular when they use the N-word in a news feature, and there's the others as well. Quite recently, a number of different things that they've done that could upset a minority of people. I think the Proms as well, which is the other one. And they had that U-turn now where you could carry on singing "Rule Britannia." But there's obviously people who are not very happy with the BBC, and not only because of the things that they've done, but also because the way we watch TV has moved on. Is essentially we are watching Netflix more, we're watching Amazon Prime, all the other bits, and people like the idea of having options, and particularly the younger generations.
Okay.
And so,
what the former Director General said is that an alternative model would include the license fee charged with council tax, meaning the BBC wouldn't have to waste time and money going after people who don't pay. So according to him, what he's saying here now isn't about the concerns that people are having that they don't want to pay council tax. He's trying to make it much easier to collect it. Right, David? That's what it seemed like to me.
Right.
Everyone would have to
Right,
pay
and
regardless.
I would have a I would take particular issue with it, and the opening statement from KEIMA was fine in tune with what I'm thinking. And regards to sort of the TV license, I don't think it should be compulsory. There are people out there who don't watch TV, and there are people out there who just watch, as you say, Netflix and other streaming media. And so for people who don't own a TV, which is again maybe few and far between, I'm not sure why signing up to a compulsory fee would be applicable to them. And to people who don't watch BBC, again, I don't think it's particularly fair and right to sort of enforce that as a compulsory tax. It already is a tax that we have to pay out to the BBC, and we pay that directly to them. I think as a coy way of trying to make sure more and more people pay and sign up to it. I don't think it's a fair way of doing that. There are lots of reasons why you may or may not want to sign up to the BBC, but I think it should be a choice more so than anything. And if you choose not to have a TV, you choose not to listen to BBC radio and rest of it, and you just want to watch Netflix on your iPad, then I can't see why you should have to have the BBC.
If I ask Christopher, yes, Christopher, that's correct. Pamela, Herbert, what's your take on the BBC tax? Do you believe in that this revision that the former Director General is talking about is the wise way forward? It doesn't deal with actually for persons who do not want to pay. Like I say, there must be a way where I can actually legally not pay the TV tax because I don't like the fact that I'm paying for family. I'm paying for program that I don't like. So therefore, I'm complicit by default. That don't make sense. That's fool, isn't it?
SYLBOURNE, I'm really sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I'm really sorry to be the bearer of bad news. In this country, there's certain things we have to do, but we don't have a choice. Some things we don't like, but we just do it anyhow. You know, some people don't like the royal family, which they call the firm, but he exists and there's nothing you can do about it. And as I said last week, and I'm saying it again, when it comes to the TV license, it is one of those fees or tax that actually been imposed on us, whether we like it or not. Now, clearly, there's been a lot of debate over the years regarding the TV license, and all that's happening is that they incorporate in within the household tax. Now, and call it the household tax. Now, whether we like it or not, obviously we could carry on debating as much as we like, but at the end of the day, we will be paying it in one way or the other. What I just like everyone here, I don't particularly agree with this approach either, actually having it as a household tax. But what I would prefer is it for to be incorporated within the the international development department, or the foreign and commonwealth department should be responsible for paying this, because as I said last week, the BBC, the reason for the TV license is actually to fund the World Service and to project, as KEIMA said, the UK's values abroad. So that's basically the fundamental reason behind the TV license, and therefore it should sit within the portfolio of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and they should use the International Development Fund, which of course we use to provide support for developing countries. That should be allocated. There should be a pocket there of funds allocated specifically for that purpose. But clearly, any way you look at it, make up your mind that in this country, the UK will be funding the TV license in one way or the other.
I would say that the other thing to add from the report from Tony Hall was that there was going to be a difference in persons who would pay a little bit more, some people pay a little bit less. There's not much given more than that in terms of the structure, but you'd think in terms of a council tax, obviously there are bands in regards to that. So it may well benefit some people more so than others in that regard. But I still can't condone another state tax on people when we've already got so many taxes that we pay. And from a media point of view, it's kind of you could look at it and say it's a media sponsored kind of or state sponsored media, and I don't like the idea of it being viewed in that particular viewpoint, because I just personally don't. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of it, but you can see how it can be sort of seen across the world in a negative kind of frame. Like I'm not saying the BBC is negative in the slightest, but I just think by having a state-sponsored kind of programming, that can then lead itself to some kind of propaganda being an issue. So that's my particular grievance with it. I think if you're going to have a licensing, then continue in the same vein that you currently have it. Why do we need to change it? What's the real rationale behind changing it? Obviously, if people aren't paying it, then there's a reason for them not wanting to pay it. Find another solution. Don't make it state sponsored. Don't make it part of your already growing tax bill. We know COV is going to have a massive tax problem as well for us going forward. Why even contemplate this? I hope it's just lip service for me personally.
Sorry, David. No, I was just saying, I think one of the reasons why they're contemplating it is because the government wants to decriminalize it, where you have individuals potentially, I think there's few taxes that you could actually go to prison for, and that's particularly one of them. And I think that the government is intending for it to be decriminalized. Now, if that's the case, and you don't have to go to prison, then people aren't going to pay it. So they need to come up with a way.
Okay, let's clarify things. Let's clarify. Let's go back slightly, because and SYLBOURNE will clarify this as well. Okay, so we're decriminalizing it, which makes it now a civil matter. The problem we have with actually a civil proceeding is that if you don't pay, whatever the judgment is made by the court, which is you have to pay a particular fine. Clearly, that will affect your credit history or all that. So you have bailiffs coming to your doors and all that. So I don't really know how, other than just saying, okay, I will have a conviction, it will still affect you somehow if you don't pay it.
You see, many people talk about that. They ignore it. They don't pay it. They ignore the bailiff and all those sort of things. But David, I believe that it will somewhat creep upon you, especially if one is working. Especially if one is working in a legal fraternity like myself, you don't want these things crawl upon you, no matter.
But not only not only legal, Spence, not only legal, SYLBOURNE, but anything you do, if you want to buy a house or get a mortgage or whatever you need to do, if you don't pay that bill, it will actually affect your credit rating. That is it will affect you in some way or the other. So, set aside the decriminalization of it, it still have an effect on the individual.
As I said, I think that the BBC just has to find a more effective way of trying to produce money for their coffers. I don't think this is the right way of doing it. Be more creative, try and incorporate and encourage people to pay for a service if you feel that they should be paying for it. And then people will want to pay for it. Have something that people really want to pay for. It's as simple as that.
And what Christopher Fenton said, it's an institution. It's not leaving anytime soon. So we have to lobby for a type of content to be featured also. So there are two aspects of it. Parallel planning. I still believe that there should be work towards trying to find a way whereby we don't have to pay it. Who don't want to pay it. I believe that should exist. And I believe the government has been talking about it for a different time. They use it in a way to get votes, and then they pull back in a certain way. It's like in Jamaica. We're going to get rid of the Queen. Yeah. And then they pull back. Watch Jamaica. Watch elections now. Watch what's happening now. They get Prince Harry to come across and sweet up Portia Simpson, and they forget everything about it. And so therefore, that's one aspect there. And then the next aspect is lobby for contents as well. Contents, because I find it offensive to be paying by default Famelon, that disgusting show, whereby I consider it just like the Belgian king of Congo, who bring the black people across and put them in this human zoo, and everybody laughing at them. And deep down, I believe that people are laughing at black people there with that rubbish, that stupidity. And at the same time, we have our same black people who are complicit. Complicit both ways. One, the fact that we are paying for it, whether we like it or not, and also the fact that we've got black people who are also maybe even the script writers for it as well.
But still, but we're not complicit. No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
Because I don't have a choice but to pay it. So I cannot be a complicit in an act that's actually I've been coerced in terms of like a legal term, if you want to, or manipulated or whatever. We have by default, yes, but we're not. We're definitely not complicit in it, in the act.
If you think about yourself being complicit about it, you will feel bad and you're gonna make some action. So I want to put that fear in you to say you are complicit, Keisha. You are complicit. You are complicit.
Listen, I have learned. There's certain things in life I've learned to do. Okay, and I might be the minority for this, but when I'm in Rome, I do what the Romans do. In this country, I've come to learn already that there are two systems. Okay, and there are two classes in this country, and there are different firms that functions in this country. BBC is a firm. The royal family is a firm. Now we just have to live with it. That is the fact. Now you cannot change certain things that actually planted or established already in this country. That's how it is.
So there are dark forces. Ooh.
That's what I heard a long time ago.
Let's
there are higher powers about.
Before you see, my backdrop got crushed a while ago. I don't know what happened.
That's why certain conversations should not be had.
I think the BBC are onto you, SYLBOURNE. They're trying to destroy your set.
Be careful now, okay? There are higher powers.
Tony Hall's pushing down your show.
Listen. I have to touch onto this one because we're going to time. Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther star, dies of cancer, age 43. Really touching moment. And I've seen so many videos of him. It's like I call Chadwick a younger version of Denzel Washington, not by virtue of age, but by virtue of length of time on this earth. I don't know, because of I like Denzel Washington because he brings something to the film world, and he's always in a top-notch position. And that's something with Chadwick Boseman. He's always in a top-notch position. I don't know, guys. What's your take on this, and what it means to you guys, if anything? Chadwick Boseman, even though it's a movie, and he's a movie star.
Well, SYLBOURNE, to me, you mentioned about Famalam and the content not reflective of what you stand for. I mean, you for me, you've got to respect Chadwick because I remember watching a feature film where he talked about his first film, one of his first programs that he was acting in, and he wasn't comfortable with the narrative. He wasn't comfortable with this. The script that was given to him, of course, a typical black man, single father, a household, and of course he was coming into a house with a knife, and that image he wasn't comfortable with, and of course he challenged the writers, the script writers about it, and of course he was dropped from that film. And I think he went on to portray very positive films afterwards because he was somebody who stood by his conviction and somebody who had a purpose, I believe. And I think he felt strongly that if he's going to represent a particular character, he wanted to represent a very positive one. And I feel somebody like him, of course, we look up to him for Black Panther, but not just that, but his story and the message that he was trying to portray is very, very good. That's how often some of us or some individuals, you take a particular job because, of course, you need the work and you compromise your principle, you compromise your values. But he's somebody who stood up for what he believed in, and I think it's a very sad occasion and for his passing, and he will be sadly missed. But what his legacy has left behind is so great, and for individuals or other people to look up and try to emulate.
Yeah.
Okay, and KEIMA, I'm trying to get back David in while we're talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely echo what KEIMA is saying. I mean, it's such a sad loss, not just for obviously his family, but the whole wide world, because we've actually had he left a great impact on our life, one way or the other. If you think about Black Panther, for example, that film, that mega film. Everyone who actually did that at the time wanted to go and watch the film because one, it was so inspirational, and obviously I took my niece and my son and especially the young people with it that surround me to watch that film at the time because I want them to feel empowered and inspired as young Black people. And I know that we're raising Black people, Black children, who we want them to know that they're strong, they're courageous, they're brave, and they're kings, and queens, and that is what that film represented. So clearly, it was a shock, and for us particularly because he's only 43 when he passed away, and he makes you, as an individual, people generally think about, what is your legacy, what do you want to leave behind when you pass on, what message do you want to leave behind, and is it you can accumulate all this wealth, but what impact do you want to have on people? And I think he's left a great legacy, on people's lives, and that's why, I think even though he's gone, his story, the films, everything that he's done is going to will remain with us for a very long time to come.
Okay, we got a few minutes, and David keep going back and forth. So I want to capture David before he disappears again. He's doing some disappearing act. David, what's your take on
this? This is just so heartfelt, so sad that my internet kept passing away there as well, unfortunately. Yeah. But in terms of Chad, I think this is a very somber moment. I didn't obviously nobody knew outside of his circle that what was going on. And it just shows you, I think that I'm a pretty positive person, but it shows you that the cliche here is that the good die young, and he definitely was somebody who you could see cared about his artwork, his creativity, and there were certain shows that you see that people were saying, oh, we really love the fact that you're in Black Panther, etc. But he wasn't just in Black Panther; he was on many a Marvel movie, and outside of that as well. And the fact that he still went on, holding this in together, and was able to pursue his dreams and follow those out is a true testament to his character. I never met him, obviously, but it's just, you can see that obviously acting was his passion, and helping people was his passion. And I think that the positive thing here is that despite the negative things that can occur for you during your life, despite the horrible terrorist of COVID and the other health problems that we all can face throughout life, you can still strive to achieve those things that you want to in a short time that you may well realize you have following a diagnosis like bowel cancer. And I think that the C word, the big C, there was a show many a year ago called The Big C. It talked about how people deal with cancer, and try to take kind of a light-hearted look at it, but obviously there was serious connotations to it as well. I think this has brought that home. And just a week before, we were talking about on a different platform about breast cancer and the effect of breast cancer in the Black community, and then this obviously arose, and so on and so forth. But cancer affects everybody. Don't get it twisted. It's not just a Black problem or a white problem or an Asian problem. It's everybody's problem. But I think that the thing here is the coping strategies for it, and that's the thing that I would really wanted to talk to you about that today, because obviously Chad had in his mind the way he was going to cope with this was to fight it, and the fighting wasn't just fighting for his family, but also fighting in terms of doing the things and pursuing the things that he loved, and to not let that distract from what he did. And he obviously kept it close to heart, and I'm sure by doing that, it allowed him to not have people on the sidelines saying, oh, can we do this for you? Can we do that for you? He kept this very close to his heart, and allowed him to sort of navigate the world in the way that he wanted to in his last years with us. So I think that I'm championing the fact that, yes, cancer, it will affect all of us in our lifetimes, whether that directly or indirectly. We know that, right? But how do we cope with it? And how do we respond to it?
Prostate, isn't it?
What's that? Sorry. Yes, exactly. Prostate cancer, is big in the Black community, unfortunately, and it's time to have those discussions. I was
going to jump in there. Sorry, David, and say it's quite interesting when it comes to issues relating to men. I don't really think there's people having a conversation regarding men issues, if I could call it that, men, because there's no open. You talk about breast cancer, clearly, there's conversation around breast cancer, but whatever men are dealing with, there's no conversation out there. As as a woman, they have a husband and all that. It's nice. It would be good for men to actually have open conversations about these things, because I think, and I don't want to sound sexist, But I think you guys hold things in a lot more than women do.
I completely agree.
Well, that's why
Keisha,
David
and
wants.
I think that's that's something we're going to talk about. We'll have entertaining discussions on this platform and another platform when the time comes. I'm going to say watch this space for next month. There's going to be a discussion on that via the Jamaica Diaspora UK Health and Wellbeing arm, talking about prostate cancer within the Black community. So that's coming up, and you're quite right. I think it's something that we shy away from. I think health in general we shy away from. For multiple reasons. I'll just throw a couple out there: engagement with medical professionals, desire to talk about your health problems, instead of hiding them away. We should be talking about them much more, delving into our family histories, making sure we know what our family members have, because that's going to help us going forward as people, and so on and so forth. So all of those things we need to touch on, and we will touch on them. I love health, as you can see. I'm passionate.
Yes.
Let's get it done.
Yeah. So definitely, because David and I are speaking that the level of this discussion will have to be done in a created show at the same time, and there cannot be too much because tomorrow I'm actually going to do some blood tests and stuff like that because of prostate as well. Because I've been, we're going to do that in the morning as well. So everybody's got to do these sort of things. Keim, I don't believe you had said anything on that.
No, I did initially, but I think I concur with everything that been said, particularly about health and how we, Keisha mentioned about men, but I think all of us need to take our health very, very seriously. And I'm not quite sure if there's enough information out there. Besides, sometimes you're told not to look on the internet, but that's the only way you could get a lot of this information anyway. But I think, of course, if you're not sure, and sometimes, before times, I don't know, David, you might correct me, before times you used to be told that you could go to your GP for a checkup, but these days the GPs are so busy now that you can't even, and to be honest, things like cancer, you need, a professional to check certain things, to make sure that you're okay. And if you're only going to be seeing virtual GPs now, then it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I think a lot of these things in terms of how we get access to medical professionals and care and information, that sort of thing is very important.
Keimi, make a very good point. Over 40, get a health check. How we do that is going to be interesting going forward. But over 40 health check, NHS approved. Do it.
Okay, so any guys over on this live here who is over 40? Anybody on Instagram? Anybody on YouTube? Go and do your check ASAP. Just like how when we did the walk and we did the 21-day challenge, and I was challenged as to what am I going to do, and I said I'm going to do my walk. So I'm challenged as well, and I'm going to do it tomorrow. As well in regards to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, those on Instagram, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and for YouTube, we are going to come on back tonight at 2 o'clock. Well, 1 o'clock tonight for the Jamaica elections. Who want to join me at 12 o'clock? Herbert, I believe, yes, David will be in his bed at that time.
Everybody's got it in for me, man. I'm going to show Herbert that I can survive. I can beat time.
I'm sorry. Oh yes.
You were supposed to speak about Adele.
I was going to go there. I was going to say, but before I go, we're going to spend 1 minute on Adele. Cultural appropriation. Is it worth to talk about it, or is it just a damn script?
I think it's a storm in a teacup. But I've got to mention this because when Kim Kardashian had those cane rolls in, everybody was up in arm about it, saying that was cultural appropriation. Yeah. I think we now need to be consistent. If Adele could have her Bantu nuts, that sort of thing, and then Kim should be able to have her cane rolls. I think it's cultural appreciation or cultural appropriation. I think we just need to be clear. But no, I think it's a storm in a teacup.
David,
wear the hair. Dare to wear the hair. I don't mind. If you go to a beach in Jamaica, and there are tourists there of all persuasions, you will find people doing whatever they want to and appreciating the culture. So I don't even know how this came to be a thing in the press. Maybe it was a slow Corona week. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't get it. But it was front page news. It shouldn't have been front page news. Let's move on.
Well, what I understood was that yes, Keisha, yes. Keisha.
Stillborn, I completely agree. In this case, I think it's definitely cultural cultural appreciation.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Not the appropriation, because I think people need to clarify what appropriation is. And appropriation is clearly taking something from a dominant culture and adopt certain cultural elements and of it and classify it as your own. So there is such a thing as cultural misappropriation, which is mocking somebody else's culture by actually wearing certain things to mock them, for example, or not giving credit to a particular culture. But in this case, it appears to me that her intention is, obviously is in good jest, wearing something that appreciating that particular culture. So I think there seems to be a blurred understanding or interpretation of what appropriation really is, but it's actually just taking something else and belonging to somebody else or the different culture and passing it on as your own, and that's not what her intention was at all. So I don't understand how that even made news, and I don't know who these critics are. I tried to Google critics of Adele, but I didn't see anything.
I can tell you who the critics are. They say they are blue tick Americans from the Black Lives Movement.
Oh,
Black blue tick, and also that is where that came from, and I call it miserable suds that have nothing to do, and they just want to impose of our minds, and that is why I say sometimes America at this point, with Black America, with what is happening, they are not really in a very effective position to be telling the UK Black community how to do it, and I was so glad that there was not a march that followed the Million March in America, because I believe that in a way these are whipping people up, impressionable minds. And I strongly believe that it was a waste of time. And as David said, I'm from Ocho Jamaica. My father was in the tourist trade, my mother was in the tourist trade, and when tourists come to Jamaica, they all do what Adele did. They go on the beach, and I'm sure Adele like her local sense and she smoke her local weed. I'm sure she smoke her weed.
Libel, SYLBOURNE, libel.
And some like everybody,
And I, for sure, I am not complicit.
Yeah. and just chilling and just say, yeah, man, what go on? And you go up with Jamaicans and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But what Herbert said in the last comment, I would say leave her alone. We as Jamaicans are not embracing her uncle, but although she's not claiming to be a Jamaican, but just telling us that she like what we represent. Easy, man, to the world. Boom. You know what I'm saying? But David, we've got to share. David, you were in London last week, and you're
yes.
There. And let me just pull someone out, because I want to pull this video out.
So we're in London last week, and we met up. So just before you play this video, we do story time. We read books, obviously, at story time. And
Keisha,
one of the books we were reading.
Play the video, okay? Just let you know. Yeah.
One of the books we were reading was basically about Black men and women who are in leadership positions, so doing really well. And one of the discussions was about Martin Luther King.
Yes. And what happened with Martin Luther King?
We felt there was a lookalike for Martin Luther King, and it wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
It wasn't me.
Okay.
It's somebody else on this platform.
Remember we went down to London on Saturday. Do you know who we saw? Who did we see?
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
I
He
have
said,
a dream.
I have a dream that one day SYLBOURNE TV will be the biggest and brightest in the world.
It already is, Daddy.
It already is.
Back up there. So David, let me just I need to bring this back slowly but surely. 1, 2, bring back. So what did he say, David? What did he say there?
He said somebody said, I have a dream, and essentially that I said, well, what was the dream? And basically the dream was that the SYLBOURNE show would be the biggest and brightest and best out there. And he said, it already is.
It sure is.
Well, listen,
absolutely.
Well, listen. That guy is a real geezer, you know. But I tell you what, interesting that you mentioned about young people there. I mentioned about Charlotte Bunston. I've got this 13-year-old gentleman who is coming on my show tomorrow night, and his name is Christian Jones. I'm going to play this small video about him. 13 years of age. He made 78,000 in the space of between, I think it was April and June or something like that. I just play this video just briefly. I just take out somebody. I'll take out myself actually.
Hey guys, I'm Christian Truth Jones, and today I want to say the top things you can do in order to make money in a recession. Now, what do I mean by that? Hey guys, I'm Christian Truth Jones, and today I want to say the top things you can do in order to make money in a recession. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean investing in the stock market. Well, I thought in stocks you can only invest when the market's up. Isn't the markets down? Or aren't the markets down? Well, now, what do I have to say to the viewer that might say that? I have this to say. I show people how to successfully make money whether the stock market goes up or down. We're in a crash and a recession, I'm making money. When we bounce back and get to where we were before this recession hit, I'm making money. No matter which way the market goes, I'm making money. And I know people are losing their jobs. Companies are losing money. People are staying quarantined. So this is the best and biggest time to learn a new skill. Like, let's be honest. You're not doing anything else. Now, what do I mean you're not doing anything else? There's no sporting events. You can't leave the house. There's no social events. This is the best time to learn a new skill that will continue to make money for the rest of your life. This is how you're able to make wealth in a recession. This is how you're able to make money in a recession, through investing. And it's not just about in a recession. It's not just about when we bounce back. This is a generational wealth.
Come back in. Okay, so that gentleman there, 13 years of age, she's Kristen Jones, coming on tomorrow night at 8 p.m. He's from the United States of America. Powerful young man, awesome, and it talks about black excellence, the same thing which I've been talking about, and funnily on Saturday as well, I've got another guy from South Africa who saw my videos and everything and like what I'm doing, and he's into acid jazz. Beautiful. His name is Tato Cash from Johannesburg. Listen, man, there's a massive world out there, and that's why I keep saying sometimes we can focus a lot on the negatives and have fun with that. But if we actually tap into the positive of each person, you'll be surprised what that's superimposed on everything. Ladies and gentlemen, well, guys, what do you think?
Well, the good thing about your show, the good thing about your show, SYLBOURNE, is that it offers another alternative to what's happening in the media or the mainstream media, which is a lot of positiveness, and that is what we really appreciate what you're doing. And I'm really grateful that you're actually reaching out to these, that young person and all these people around the world who actually are, black, successful, talented, gifted people.
Last word,
I'm
David?
bringing them on your show.
Yeah.
SYLBOURNE, the BBC fee needs to be paid this way. We can all have our little fund. So I'm happy to support, happy to pay my licensing fee to the SYLBOURNE show. Just move it across. Just divert the traffic this way.
I feel that.
That's true.
And KEIMA, you got the last word.
No, I think it's fantastic. I think so much time in the media, you see a lot of negative portrayals of black people, black images, and it's always good to have a platform, and I don't think we have enough platform where we could speak positive and showcase some of the positive things that's happening in our community. And I think this, the SYLBOURNE show, I think that's what it's for, isn't it? It doesn't go with the flow. That's what it's about.
You hit the nail on his head. Don't go with the flow, man. Wakanda. Everybody. Wakanda. KEISHA. Wakanda. Come on, everybody. So listen, guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. Those on Instagram, Junior and guys, Sanchia, and YouTube as well. And whosoever want to do the bleaching, you can bleach with me tonight with Dr. Kevin Brown and Matunda, former public defender, and Sharika, where we're going to wait up for the elections for the Jamaica results, as if Prime Minister Andrew Holness will retain the position, or the People's National Party, PNP, Peter Phillips, will take over as the next Prime Minister of Jamaica. David, I know you're not going to be sleeping, so I look forward to seeing you.
No, I'm going to Herbert is going to be wrong on this occasion. That's it. And put all my cards in.
And KEIMA and KEISHA, You guys are honorary Jamaicans, so you have no choice. I know one of you guys are into green. You go with green. Labor, right?
Can I just say, make one comment about the debate? Believe it or not, I watched the debate, and I'm just telling you, it is so professional. It's top notch. I mean, you guys have some very, very intelligent cream of the crops there, and I just love the debate. The debate was on a different level. I mean, we need to have young people to that level when it comes to debating. We don't. I mean, they're obviously well trained, and I was very much impressed.
Yes, David, you take that, man. Seize it. Thank you. All right. Okay. Anyway, thank you for that, and all the best, ladies and gentlemen, and peace out. Okay. Remember to like and subscribe to the SYLBOURNE Show. Come back next week as well. Keima's declared herself. And declared herself long time. Anyway, guys, on that note, we leave. Cheers. Okay.